Hello again, and today I'm going to be talking about Hoover upright vacuum cleaners, and in particular the Hoover model 119. Now the 119 was first manufactured by Hoover Limited at Perivale in Greenford, Middlesex, London. It was manufactured from 1950 to about 1955. They then replaced it with a model 1224 which ran from 1956 to 1958. Now both the cleaners are practically identical and all the spares are interchangeable. The only differences really are in the colour scheme. Whilst the 119 is in this lovely gold and brown colour scheme, the 1224 was in a sort of cream or off-white colour and blue. The 119 had a slightly narrower furniture guard around here. The 1224, it's a bit wider, but it doesn't look quite as nice in my opinion. Some people like the 1224, I prefer this one. The cover plate's slightly different on the 1224. They're interchangeable, but it has a Hoover roundel on it, which this one doesn't have. The only other difference in working was that the 1224 came out with radio and TV suppression fitted as standard, whereas this one didn't, and you could put it in afterwards if you wanted it, but they didn't originally come with suppression fitted. But otherwise they're the same. Now the colour scheme of this is basically the same as the wonderful 612 model which I've got here. I'll just show you. The reason I'm showing you this is because this happens to be my favourite Hoover upright vacuum cleaner. This is the model 612, and as you can see it's practically identical in its colour scheme to the 119. Both of these are really good cleaners. This is my favourite all-time Hoover vacuum cleaner. I've always liked these better than anything. They're wonderfully reliable, they clean really well, and they last forever practically. I mean, this one's 70 odd years old now, so what's not to like about it? Anyway, I'll put that down because this video is about the 119. I should rabbit on about the 612 too much, I'm afraid. So let's get back to the 119, shall we? Because that's what we're supposed to be talking about today. Now you're wondering where I got this from. This was presented to me by my brother a couple of weeks ago. He still runs a small electrical shop, which is a rarity these days. They're mostly gone. And this was brought into his shop recently for repair, and unfortunately there was things wrong with it which he couldn't get the spares for now. The customer didn't want it, they wanted it scrapped, so I was lucky enough to get it brought to me. So anyway, enough about that. I'll now tell you a few things about the cleaner. We'll have a quick look at it. This will probably be a two-part video, because in the first part what I'm going to do is talk about it, show you the things. We'll just have a look at this machine and see what's wrong with it and what's right with it, and I'll show you what needs doing, and then perhaps I'll do another video showing myself actually doing the work, repairing it, because I think it's going to need some repair and I don't want to make the video too long because you'll all drift off to sleep anyway. So the first thing I noticed about it is the flex. It's got massive thick rubber cable on. I mean, look at this. You don't need cable like this on a 119. Somebody's put it on and it looks like it's rubber, and it's some special, it's probably heat resistant cable, which is totally unnecessary on this. It's too bulky, great thick ugly stuff, so that's no good. We'll just have a look at the rest of it. On the top I noticed straight away, I'll just move it down so you can see it. There we are, the handle grip's missing here. There's no handle grip, so that's not a problem because I've got some handle grips. I've even got some brown ones. The bag spring's alright. Put that back up again. What else can we find on it? Furniture guard's damaged down here. I've got some brown furniture guard, so if necessary I can replace the furniture guard if I need it. There's a few holes in the bag. It does look like the original bag actually, which is quite nice because there's not many of these that got the original bag on them now. So that's quite a rarity. So what we're going to do, we're going to plug it in and see what it sounds like. My brother told me the bearings are gone on it, and I've had a quick look and they are. But I'll just plug it in anyway so you can hear what it sounds like. That's pretty horrible, isn't it? Now, interesting enough, it's an old trick here. Now obviously it needs work on it, the bearings are faulty. But watch this, I'm going to put the belt on now. Okay? Nowhere near as bad, is it? Sounds almost reasonable. And it's an old trick. In the old days when we found a Hoover cleaner, especially a contract one, with the bearings a little bit worn and you couldn't afford to put bits on it, or there was some reason you couldn't do it, perhaps you hadn't got one, if you put a brand new nice tight belt on it, it would take a lot of that noise away and it would sound quite reasonable. And that's the problem, that's what's happening here. Because we've put a belt on, it's stopping a lot of that play on it. Now to test for bearing wear, there's two ways of doing it. First of all, if you pull the fan pulley in and out, and if there's play on there, that indicates that the ball bearing on the front is worn out and needs replacing. Actually, there isn't any play, end play as you call it, and when I turn it, it's a little bit rumbly, but all that needs really is greasing. I do have a ball bearing if it needs it, but in actual fact I think it just needs greasing. More seriously is the side plate. If you've got the fan pulley and you move the fan pulley up and down like this, any play up and down on that fan pulley, that indicates that the rear bearing in the back of the motor is worn out. The rear bearing is a phosphor bronze sleeve bearing, and if you get up and down play, that indicates that bearing's gone. If you listen, that knocking is the play. You see, what generally happens is that the bearing itself wears out, the phosphor bronze bearing wears out, and you can just replace the bearing. In extreme cases, it will have worn the armature shaft as well, and you need to put a new armature in. For a certain time, Hoover had a policy of if you got a worn armature and bearing, what they would do, rather than put a new armature in, they take the armature out and turn it down on a lathe and then put a sleeve on it and make it slightly oversized, which meant that you had to put an oversized bearing on it. So if you come across one of those, first of all, you can't get an oversized bearing to fit it, but even worse, even if you put a new bearing in, the armature won't fit in it because it's an oversized journal on the armature. So that means you really need to put a whole armature and a rear bearing in, which these days would be difficult because you can't get one, but obviously I've got a second-hand one somewhere. So that's how you check for bearing wear, and that one's going to need some investigation. Another thing I've noticed about this, when I mentioned about somebody's put another cable on it, if you look, the cable is actually routed wrongly. The cable comes out of the motor here and goes straight up there. In actual fact, that's wrong. It should come down through the side of the handle. You'll see a little nick in the bail there. That's where a clip goes. There's one clip here doing nothing, and there should be two, one there and one there. And what happens is there should be some sleeving which runs around here, underneath the bail here, down here, round underneath the bolt that holds the bail in place, and then into there. It shouldn't go direct in there. That's wrong. And Hoover changed it many years ago in the early days to stop the cable getting damaged in this position. They rerouted it around here and up around there. So that's something else that needs doing, as well as the handle thing. I'm going to take the bottom plate off, and then I'm going to switch it on again and have a look and check the commutation. That's the sparking on the armature, because again, if the armature is worn out electrically, it will spark like mad, and it won't be any good. It will need new armature probably. Now I'm going to try and get so the camera can see, and I'm going to plug this in and switch it on, and we can see what the commutation's like up in here. If there's lots of sparking, that means we're in trouble. It sounded alright to me. You can usually tell by the sound actually, if it's arcing, and that it makes a horrible arcing sound obviously. So if I plug it in, and then we'll switch it on, and you can see there is going to be some sparking. There's always sparking, they call it commutation, but it should be minimal. If you've got sparks that are whirling all around the armature, that means you've usually got shorted coils in the armature, and then you've had it. So let's switch on and have a look. I don't know whether you can see that or not. I can't tell at this moment, but trust me, that's perfect. That armature is beautiful, as long as the journal isn't worn out too much. But electrically speaking, it's alright. Don't forget, when you're doing these things, folks, always make sure you unplug it. It's all too easy to do something like this and then forget you got it plugged in, and then you go to it, oh, just do that, oh, bang, and you get hell of a shock, and it might not do you any good, might it? So always unplug it first. And this spring here, don't try taking it off. If you're doing one of these and you fancy giving it a good overhaul, it's quite common for people to take every single part off the machine and clean it all up and put it back, but sometimes it's wise just to leave it on there. If you take everything off, I'm telling you, if you take that spring off, you'll regret it, because they're a fiddle to get back on. I've done them when I've replaced the body, but I wouldn't recommend it. You don't have to take it off, you don't need to, and if you do, you wish you hadn't. Carpet adjustment is said to be automatic because it's got wide carrier wheels, which Hoover said would run over the carpet rather than sink into it. So there's no actual adjustment like you have on more modern ones. But when you can actually make some adjustment, but it's a sort of thing you can't do on and off easily. What you do, you undo this screw here that holds the caster wheels on. If you're going to take the wheels off for cleaning, it's always better to do this first. Take the axle off, because it's easier to get the wheels off when you've got it out. If you try and do it on there, it's a fiddle getting the clips off. Now if you take this off, you'll notice, take this out together, that's it, you'll notice there are several spacers, square spacers. There's one on the bottom there, look, and there's one there. What you do, if you want to adjust change the adjustment of it, what you do is move the spacer, so you can take that one off and put it this side, or you can take these off and put it that side, so the wheels either go farther in or stick farther out, which gives you some form of adjustment over the carpet. But normally you set it and leave it there. I'm just going to put that back on, or else I should lose the spacers. Another thing about the 119, notice this body here, the main part obviously is alloy, lightweight alloy, but this part is Bakelite, proper Bakelite, and that's why it's still going after over 70 years, because Bakelite doesn't have the same problems that plastic has. If you look at a lot of modern cleaners, the plastic ones, even fairly recent ones, the plastic gets so brittle it just snaps off in your hands. It's rubbish. It just doesn't last long. Bakelite will go on forever, as far as, well, I don't know, I'm not an expert on Bakelite, you understand, but I've seen Bakelite products that are many years old and they're still perfect. This is perfectly alright. And the hood on that 612 I showed you earlier, again, that's Bakelite, and it's got a nicer feel to it and everything, and it looks better at Bakelite, I think. Now as you can see, the brushes in the agitator are quite badly worn. They're worn down to about half what they should be, but I do have some new brushes here, a pair of new brushes to fit, so that's not a problem. In the old days we used to actually send brushes away for rebristling at one particular time, and Hoover themselves used to rebristle brushes as well. I can't say that word, rebristle, I can't say it. Hoover themselves used to rebristle brushes themselves. That's difficult to say, rebristle, I'm afraid to say. Now I do have a problem with this cleaner, because a few weeks ago my brother told me about it and said that he got a 119 in, because I often ask him if he's got any old cleaners in, and he said he had a 119 in, but he thinks the bearing's gone and the brushes, and I said, well, I'll have a look in my store and see if I've got anything to fit it, and if I've got more than one, you know, you can have it and offer the repair to the customer. Well, actually, when I looked, I only found one of each, one pair of brushes and one bearing for it. And I said to him, well, I'm a bit dubious about letting them go because I've got my own machine to do up. And he said, no, don't worry. He said, I don't think the customer wants to spend the money anyway. And obviously, you can have the machine if they don't want it. But what I did, I searched around the shed and I found this bearing, a rear bearing, and some brushes. But I'm damned if I can find them. I've searched high and low for them, and I don't know where I've put them. I must have put them somewhere safe so I can find them again, and I can't find them. I've been through the shed with a fine-tooth comb, and I can't find the blooming things. Now I've got a spare pair of 119 brushes, as I've just showed you here, but I don't know where the bearing is. I've got it somewhere, but when you've got as much junk as I have, it becomes a bit difficult to sort it out, so I don't know what I'm going to do. I'll spend another 3 days looking for it, I suppose. Anyway, I think I've just about done the preliminaries on this, and as I mentioned, it'll be quite a long video to do the whole thing in one go. So what I'll do, I think I'll end the video here. I've told you a bit about it, and then in the next video we'll get to work on the machine and I'll show you how I'm going to take it apart, and we'll have a look at the armature and see what state it's in, and I'll explain things along as we go. I think that'll do for now, so hopefully in the next video I'll have found the bearing and I can take it apart and show you what I'm going to do with it. Thanks for watching, bye for now, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.